Southern California is being opened back up. And a dear friend of mine, Liana, who is a clothing stylist, gave me this really cool shirt. And I'm sitting down so I can't stand up and show you, but it was tailor-made straight off the rack. She has an amazing eye. Boy, I tell you what, if you need any advice on fashion, don't come to me. Go see Liana. So today on Tomorrow's Police Officer, 10 at 10, I want to share something about the brain, because in our conversations about the brain and neuroscience, I've talked about a couple of things that are really important for you to understand as a law enforcement officer, because it seems sometimes that someone can just completely hijack us. There are people who seem to be experts. They seem to have this innate sense of how to find our buttons, push them repeatedly like a little 4-year-old in an elevator or an adult late for an appointment. And then they just keep pushing the buttons and until we get set off like a missile launch, going ballistic. So what I want to talk today about is how that happens, and begin the discussion, not just so you understand how and why it happens, but how to prevent it from happening. Because it's like they reach inside your head and they flip a switch, they push a button, and or it's almost like we're at the opposite end of the spectrum. Sometimes when you're watching a movie and you just you're like welling up and you're getting all emotional and you're like, what the heck? I'm not an emotional person, but this movie is like bringing all these emotions up. Or you find, for some people it's kittens, some people it's dogs, a little puppy, and you're like, oh, it's cute. So what is it that causes these things? That's what we're talking about this week on 10 at 10. So each day we're going to be diving into the things that this week that deal with the brain, that deal with why are we getting these emotions triggered. And I'm going to specifically center around how you can protect yourself from losing your cool, losing your temper, just snapping. That's what tonight is about. So we got 10 minutes. And in our 10 minutes, I'm going to first talk about the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is a small, tiny part of your brain. It's less than 1/100th of your brain. And in this tiny little recess in the back part of your brain, it takes care of all of our emotions. Now, sometimes I refer to it as the fear center of our brain. If you think about it this way, it's real simple to understand. We're always faced with in law enforcement, the fight or flight response. Now remember, there's only certain things that happen when this response is triggered, and it's called the sympathetic nervous system response. So sympathetic nervous system speeds us up. The parasympathetic nervous system slows us down. So a sympathetic nervous system response is taking the brain and the spinal cord, because that is your central nervous system. The central nervous system is comprised of the brain and the spinal cord. The amygdala sends a signal out, which sends a full body response. So your sympathetic nervous system response, your fight or flight, is we're either going to, from ages ago, we're either going to fight off the woolly mammoth or we're going to run, fight or flight. And today we don't obviously have woolly mammoths to deal with. We have something more dangerous, which is humans that we have to worry about. And sometimes there's other dangers. If you're driving along and someone runs a red light and you have to slam on your brakes, you're going to have a sympathetic nervous system response. You're going to have adrenaline dumping into your body. Your pupils are going to dilate. Your heart rate will kick up. Your blood pressure will increase. Your digestion will shut down. And your blood will be shunted to the major muscle groups and your brain and your heart and your lungs, which is why your hands will start to shake because you have all this adrenaline flooding through your body. And sometimes we don't have to have something major. We can just be nervous and we'll have a fight or flight response kick in. So there's only a few things that happen when people are faced with a great deal of stress. They fight, they flight, so they fight or they run. They freeze, they fawn, in other words, they cower down, or they make friends. That's it. 5 things when you have a sympathetic nervous system response. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, friends. All F's. Easy to remember. 5 things that happen when the brain gets triggered like that. Now, when your amygdala is sensing, because it's, again, when you think about it as a fear center of the brain, what will end up happening is when your amygdala is triggered, you have a fight or flight response. You begin, because of the amygdala, has limited response ability, the ability to respond. So when we talk about law enforcement and communicating with the public and dealing with our families and sometimes our bosses, sometimes our subordinates, sometimes our peers, when we're under stress, what is your response ability? We all have a responsibility to interact well with other people. We're expected to as law enforcement officers. But what is your ability in your responses? It's a twist on the word response ability. So your amygdala tends to limit that. You tend to not be as smart because your amygdala is fired up. Now, when someone's pushing your buttons, they're hijacking your amygdala. They are literally reaching inside your head and they are flipping a switch and they are triggering you. Now, when you recognize that that's happening, how can you recognize it? And when you recognize it, what do you do about it? I'm going to be covering in a different 10 at 10. That's going to be tomorrow. But for right now, I want you to understand what's going on. Because once you understand what's going on, it makes it a lot easier to recognize that it is going on. So the amygdala gets triggered. You are in a fight or flight mode, and you stop using the logical part of your brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, the front area of your brain. And that's where logic and reason and great decision making resides. The amygdala is all about the emotions. The prefrontal cortex is all about the logic. So think about this. You know, we have some amazing de-escalation courses at Tomorrow's Police Officer. And one of our core teaching principles is you cannot use a logical argument when someone's in a highly agitated emotional state. It doesn't work. So when the public expects us, well, you should have reasoned with them. Well, logic and reason would be great, except they're in a highly agitated emotional state. You can't come in with a logical argument or a logical reasoning and have it connect. They're on 2 different levels. So how do we deal with that? I don't know. We're going to start talking about that tomorrow. Today, right now, in just the 10 minutes that we have, which we only have about a minute left, I want you to understand where it's happening. The amygdala, emotions, lizard brain, right? Snap reactions, instinct. Prefrontal cortex, logic, reason, well-made decisions. The 2 are in separate areas of the brain. I've talked before about how you cannot be in gratitude and in fear at the same time. You cannot be in gratitude and anger at the same time, because Those are completely different ends of the emotional spectrum. And I want you to always remember that, because when you do, you have a great foundational understanding of how the amygdala is working and what to do when you recognize, and also how to recognize, but primarily what to do when you recognize your amygdala is starting or has been completely hijacked. Understanding that whole gratitude and fear, gratitude and anger, opposite ends of the spectrum, is foundational for understanding what to do. We're going to be diving into that tomorrow. I hope you received excellent value in today's 10 at 10. Jump on over to tomorrowspoliceofficer.com. If you're on Facebook, please share this episode so that other people can benefit from what you just listened to. Like us, share it, comment below. When do you notice that your buttons have been pushed? Who's been the most prolific button pusher in your life? Is there somebody in your life right now that is really just good at it and you want some extra tools to work better with this person? Well, the rest of this week, that's what I'm going to be covering. So if you're on their YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button. And then right after you do, there's a little bell just to the right of where the subscribe button was. It now would say subscribed, and click on that little bell and you'll get a notification every time a new video drops. And also hit the little thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate that. All right, that's it for tonight. Until next time, please stay safe. Bye for now.